I came to the Salvation Army through the Salvation Army's rehab programs. I struggled with addiction for over a decade. I was raised in the church, but at 17 when I left home, I joined in the rebellious world that was around me. And for 10 years, I participated in that. I lost my family, I lost friends, I lost all support that I had. I was arrested over 20 times in those 10 years. In jail, my final time in 2019, I overdosed and I died there. But in the midst of that darkness and in the midst of that life-threatening situation, I remembered the scriptures of my childhood that said, "Those who call upon the name of the Lord will be saved." And so I just cried Jesus with my whole heart. And in that moment, I felt Jesus come running for me. And it was in that moment that I was delivered from drug addiction. Not a moment after or a second after that did I ever have a desire to use again. I was released from jail for the final time, but I had nowhere to go. My family had quit supporting me as they should have. A friend told me about the Salvation Army rehab programs. With nothing to my name, no clothes on my back, no support, he dropped me off at the Salvation Army and I entered their doors. They gave me a warm bed. They gave me clothes on my back. They gave me food. But the most important thing that this program did for me was they introduced me back to Jesus. I started paying attention to how the Salvation Army treated people. People on the street, people struggling to pay their bills, people struggling to afford Christmas. And I really saw a biblical church within the Salvation Army. It was then that I decided to answer the calling that Jesus had placed on my life so many years ago. I am so grateful for the life that I lived because it has brought me to where I am at today. A place today where I can recognize the hurt in people. Today where I can recognize the struggle in people. I am in the Salvation Army Seminary School. It's a 2-year-long program, and part of that program, at the end of the 2 years, the last Christmas, we're sent out on the field for assignment. So that's how I landed in Quincy. My first week here in Quincy, I came into the Croc and I see people struggling with addiction in the chairs, charging up their phones. Most people may walk by and not think a thing about it, but I saw them because I was them. I began to strike up a conversation with these gentlemen that had been on the streets for such a long time. And I talked to them about the Salvation Army's rehab programs. I told them that they didn't have to make a decision today, but when they were ready for it, I would take them. A couple days later, I got a message from the front desk saying a gentleman had stopped by. He had thought about what I said and he was ready to make a change. This man, who it seemed like everybody had given up on, had finally come to the point that he wanted to change. This man came to us being up for several days because of the chaos that he had been living in. He got in the car and after a few minutes, he fell asleep because he was at such peace. After an hour or so of driving, he woke up when I had the worship music on, and he began to sing each line, word for word. This man who had been sitting on the streets, who had been cast off as being a drug addict, knew every word to these worship songs that came through the window. And I just thought, my God, you have been pursuing this man. Thank you, Jesus, for letting us be there to be used as a vessel for your kingdom. Though the Salvation Army has a global outreach locally, I thank you. I thank you for every single dollar that you put in the kettle. I thank you for every time that you sign up to ring a bell, because that dollar, that hour of volunteering means that you help a father back to their children. You help an uncle back to their nieces and nephews. You've helped me back to my dad. And I'm so grateful for every single dollar and every single hour that you volunteer for the Salvation Army.